Hey girl, hey, it's your birth bestie, Nurse Rini, and I'm coming to you with a story from the subreddit Birth Trauma. And while it's unfortunate that this mama had this experience, let's learn from it so we don't repeat anything. So maybe there are things we can learn from, take from it. Let's see if we can pick them out as we go through. Let's dive in. So she says, I started having strong contractions at 7:30 a.m. I was asked to come to the hospital. I was attached to an NST and 2 centimeters dilated. So she was brought in and they were assessing her to see where she was starting. They put the baby on the monitor, which is a non stress test or an NST, where they are able to non invasively monitor the baby. They just put a couple of ultrasounds on your belly, hold them in place with some belts, and you hang out. She continues with, I started having regular contractions. My husband brought my mother in law with me, and she invited her sister. So this kind of implies that she maybe didn't want her mother-in-law there, and maybe she caved to pressure. But she definitely sounds like she did not invite mother-in-law's sister. So this is one of the things that we want to pick out, right? Kind of go ahead and think about the experience that you want to have and try to curate that. And that may mean hurting some feelings, but definitely don't be afraid to kind of make it the experience that you want. It's not a spectating event. It's not a sporting event. It's childbirth. So if you don't want someone there, you want privacy, that's well within your right. They were both chit chatting in the room while I labored. The cervical checks were very, very painful. So she's uncomfortable. She's trying to focus. She has a job to do, right? She's laboring and she's going to deliver a baby. And you have people over in the corner just shooting the breeze. It's really not the best environment. It sounds like for her, and it may work for some people, but again, this is going to involve you, turning inward and kind of being introspective and figuring out what will work for you. Okay. So she says, I got an epidural, which was one sided, and I don't know why it did not work. I was crying and screaming in pain. They topped it off 3 times, but it wasn't working. So let's talk about this. I think one of the worst things that can happen is that you get an epidural and it doesn't work because you have a certain level of expectation, obviously, when you get an epidural, so that you can be comfortable, right? And epidurals, if you take my course, you'll learn that epidurals are a kind of blind procedure, if you will. The doctors do it based on anatomical feel of your body and what they study. And so, it's a plastic catheter that goes into your back ultimately, and it may migrate once it's inside. And evidence of that would be, being a one-sided, block. So that's really unfortunate. So they will top you off, give you like quote unquote bolus doses so that you can get like comfortable. But if it never gets comfortable and that one-sidedness doesn't go away, then they may need to replace it. And I've seen patients get it replaced. And most anesthesiologists or certified registered nurse anesthetists will want to replace it because one, the goal is for you to be careful, comfortable. They aren't there for you to be uncomfortable, right? And they also don't want to have to keep topping it off because that kind of defeats the purpose. So, unfortunately, I don't know if that was offered as an option to her, but it doesn't sound like it got done. So, I wanted to deliver normally, and I guess normally for her would have been vaginally. I didn't want a C-section, but at 7:30 p.m., they told me I was stuck at 7 centimeters and that I should get a C-section. So she's been in labor for about 12 hours at this point. She doesn't say whether or not her water was broken or anything, but she goes on to say, at this point, I was in so much pain that I consented. At this point, I was in so much pain that I consented. They wheeled me off, and my daughter was born at 8:30 p.m. My epidural was still not working, so I was only on a paracetamol drip, and I think that's like Tylenol for pain. I was in a lot of pain. So her epidural was working to some extent because she had surgery with the same epidural, but it probably wasn't meeting the expectation that she wanted. But again, C-section is a major abdominal surgery, so this is really unfortunate because pain can get in the way of like bonding and just the overall experience. She goes on to say that she has flat nipples and her baby wouldn't latch. So I always tell my parents to go ahead and find and locate your resources before you have the baby because her flat nipples didn't just happen. Most likely she's had them like ever since she had breast, right? So flat nipples can be a challenge to breastfeed with, but it's totally doable. But you may need additional assistance, more than what you can get in a hospital. Um, for the time that you may need. So I would recommend finding your lactation consultant ahead of time, connecting with them, finding out their prices, their fees, their style, and seeing if there's someone that you want to work with. So when you get in a pickle at home, you don't have to go Googling and searching. You have someone already established. They kept us in a dark ward for 4 days. I don't know what that means. And my baby wouldn't latch. They said I was low on milk and fed her formula. So if her baby wouldn't latch, it probably was hard for her to be able to get a substantial supply. And it's early, so it's not like you're expecting to be dripping milk or anything. But if her baby wasn't latching well, then getting adequate transfer, milk transfer, will be hard, or colostrum transfer. And when I say, milk transfer, I mean actually getting the milk from the breast to the baby's stomach. If that's challenging, then baby may be dropping weight, but we'll see what she says. They said I was on, okay. They treated her for a non existent jaundice. That's interesting. I would be interested in what the levels were. She said she had her levels in the borderline and they subjected her for extended phototherapy. So she was borderline, and rather than wait for it to spike, they went ahead and gave her phototherapy. Um, Mom could have said no to that. And I don't know if she knows that. So I'm telling you guys, like, if you're like, well, she's on the cusp, let's just give it another day or give it a few more hours. Let's retest and things like that. She had her levels in the, okay, blah. It was Christmas time. And when the doctor came, she was furious that the temporary doctor put her under phototherapy for so long. We were discharged on the fifth day. I can't get over it. I think of all things I could have done for a normal delivery: exercises, yoga balls, dates on all fours during labor, all of the things. She mentions a proper epidural, maybe another hospital, or I could have had asked for another anesthetist, asked my mother-in-law to vacate the premises, not consented for a C-section. So there's so many things, and I think that she seems to have regret for the entire experience, which is unfortunate because this will be with her for the rest of her life. And it seems like it's robbing her of the joy of having a healthy baby. She says, also, I am a psychiatrist, and people keep telling me throughout that I should know how to meditate through the pain. No, that's not possible for everyone. And it takes practice, and it takes, I mean, there are classes for this for a reason. Um, they keep saying that she's too sensitive to pain. She doesn't know. I can't. It was the worst day of my life. People tell me to get over it, say that my baby is healthy and I should get over it, and I just can't. She probably needs therapy to process what happened, the experience that she had. I feel bad for her because it's not like she can go back and change anything. But if she chooses to have another child, the things that I mentioned already would be things that I would recommend. So let's review them and recap them real quick. One, make a very purposeful list of who you want to be in your labor room. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing if you don't want it to be. If you're in early labor and you happen to be at the hospital and you're fine with company, great. Once things start to, get real and get ramped up and you want to send them home, you can do that. But like, have a plan. Two, have a plan, period, a birth plan. And the birth plan can include who you want to be there and who you don't want to be there, but it also includes how you want your labor to go. And I think that part of the issue here is that it doesn't sound like she really had a plan. It sounds like now she's thinking in hindsight, but it doesn't sound like she really had a plan, because I would think that hopefully, maybe, that if she expressed what her desires were, then maybe they would have been able to better work with her to meet those desires. I think the third thing I would say would be to ask questions. It sounds like she kind of didn't say much for the duration of the experience and kind of just went with the recommendations. But I think if she could have asked questions and better understood what the expectations were and what she needed to do and what she needed them to do, I think that, bi-directional communication would have been helpful. But let me know what you guys think. Did you learn anything from her story? Did you have a previous traumatic birth? Do you know someone who did? And does this, put things into perspective for you? Did I have some good ideas for you? Let me know. What else would you recommend if you've been there and done that already? And even if you haven't, all opinions, all, input is welcome. Like, comment, share, let's grow a community, and subscribe. Bye.